Fiancée doesn't want to introduce me or let me talk to her best friends before marriage. My fiancée, 32F, and I, 28M, have been dating for the past 2.5 years, and our relationship has always been fairly public. By public, I mean that both of us have actively shared pictures and reels from our vacations and special moments together on social media, particularly on Instagram. We've always been transparent about being in a relationship. However, her Instagram presence is limited to close friends and family, and she doesn't have many followers from her workplace or broader social circle. In real life, she has a small, close-knit group of around 7 or 8 good friends as well as one cousin whom she meets regularly. As mature adults, we decided early on in our relationship that we wanted to get married eventually. Over the last couple of years, we've discussed it multiple times, and earlier this year, we decided on a tentative timeline for the wedding, targeting the end of 2024 or early 2025. With this in mind, I thought it was the right time to introduce her to my family formally. After discussing it with her and getting her consent, I arranged for her to meet my family last month at a nice restaurant in the city. The meeting went well. My family liked her and felt positive about our relationship. They were even enthusiastic enough to suggest setting a wedding date for later this year. However, my fiancé felt that timeline was too soon, which I completely understood, so we agreed to push the wedding to February 2025. In my city, it's common practice to book marriage halls well in advance to ensure availability, especially for weddings scheduled during peak seasons. After consulting her and discussing the matter with my family, I went ahead and booked a hall for the wedding. A few days later, she also booked a hall for the celebration on her side. In our culture, it's customary to have separate events hosted by the bride's and groom's families, so this step felt like a natural part of the planning process. So far, I've made an effort to include her in my social circle. She has met my family and one of my female friends who traveled from another city with her boyfriend to meet us. The meeting was planned and went smoothly. Additionally, she happened to meet another friend of mine by chance when we ran into each other at a mall. However, I've never had the opportunity to meet her close friends in a similar manner. The only times I've interacted with them have been brief and unplanned. Once or twice when I was driving her somewhere and a couple of her friends joined us. These interactions were very casual, involving only a few words exchanged during the ride. Despite not having met them formally, her friends have always been aware of our relationship, and I've assumed they were supportive of it. Recently, however, she mentioned that she doesn't want me to talk to her best friends at all before we're married. This came as a bit of a surprise to me. While I understand her desire to maintain certain boundaries, especially with her closest friends, it feels unusual given how open we've been about our relationship over the past 2.5 years. Her request has left me questioning the dynamics of her friendships and what might be driving her hesitance to have me interact with her inner circle before the wedding. A strange incident occurred last week that has left me feeling quite confused. To provide some context, this situation stems from a previous encounter with one of my fiancé's friends on Instagram, which happened about a year ago. At that time, my fiancé and I had a fight and she had stopped speaking to me for a while. Concerned about her well-being, I decided to reach out to one of her close friends via Instagram. Before this, I had never spoken to this friend apart from knowing her through my fiancé. My decision to message her friend was driven by genuine concern. I knew my fiancé was dealing with multiple challenges at that time, including a significant financial loan and some conflicts with her family. On top of that, our fight had added to her stress, and I thought that perhaps having a trusted friend to talk to might help her process everything better. I sent a polite message to her friend, explaining the situation briefly and asking if she could check on my fiancé and talk to her. Her friend responded politely, saying she would surely talk to her. However, shortly afterward my fiancé called me and she was extremely angry. She demanded that I never contact her friend again. Her reaction surprised me because my intention had been purely to look out for her, but I didn't argue. At the time, our relationship was not very stable, so I chose to comply with her request and gave her the space she seemed to need. Later that same day, her friend sent me a message saying, "Hey, sorry I can't help you in this," and then immediately blocked me on Instagram. I decided not to react or pursue the matter further, as I didn't want to escalate the situation. I assumed that my fiancé had spoken to her friend and asked her to block me, and I respected her boundaries. Since then, I've avoided any direct communication with her friends as per her wishes, and have focused on strengthening our relationship instead. This incident stayed in the back of my mind as a curious and somewhat unresolved moment, but I didn't dwell on it too much. However, now that a similar situation seems to have arisen, I can't help but feel confused about the dynamics at play and why she is so adamant about maintaining a strict separation between me and her friends. Now this same friend texted me suddenly last week as she was not able to reach my GF over call and she was tensed as what was going on. I politely replied back saying, hey, she's alright, probably busy with office work, I will inform my GF that you are trying to reach her. I called my GF and said her friend called, to which she was like, oh Lord, why does she have to text you, please block her on Instagram. I found it very weird to block that friend and immature at the same time. So I told her I won't, so my GF told me that if I want then her friend will. Few moments later I saw I was again blocked on Insta by her friend. This time around I found myself feeling frustrated and angry, so I decided to reach out to her friend again, but this time through another Instagram handle that she uses. I sent her a message saying, hey, how are you doing? I didn't like what you just did, and this is not a very respectable way to talk to someone. I felt like I needed to express my dissatisfaction with the way things were handled, as I didn't think it was fair for me to be blocked twice when my intentions were only to communicate and build a better connection with her and my fiancé's circle. I also added something more pointed, which in retrospect I might have been too harsh with. I wrote, if your husband has some self-respect, he should also not be texting my girlfriend when you guys are having issues. I understand that this comment about her husband was perhaps an overstep, but I felt that the situation was escalating and wanted to make it clear that my intentions were misunderstood. Her response to my message was fairly dismissive. She said, hey, my husband, me, and her were in her life much before you came into her life. This to me felt like a deflection and I didn't know how to respond. I didn't want to create a bigger rift or make things more complicated, but I felt I had to stand my ground, so I replied to her calmly, trying to explain my perspective. I said that I didn't mean to break their friendship or cause any issues. My intention had always been to help improve their bond and that I only reached out because I felt disrespected by being blocked twice, even though all I wanted was a simple conversation or a chance to get to know them better. Unfortunately, she didn't respond to that message and instead she informed my fiancé about the exchange. As you can probably guess, when my girlfriend found out about the conversation, she was extremely angry with me. She was furious not only about me reaching out again but also about the fact that I referred to her friend's husband in the way I did. I could see that it upset her deeply, and the anger she directed toward me was more intense than I expected. She made it clear that I had crossed a line by involving her friend's husband in the discussion and that it wasn't my place to speak about their relationship. I tried to explain that I didn't mean to cause problems or make her feel disrespected, but my fiancé wasn't having it. She seemed to view the entire situation as an unnecessary complication, and I could sense the tension growing between us. I had hoped that by reaching out I could clear the air, but instead, I seem to have made things worse. It's frustrating because I genuinely didn't intend to upset anyone, but it feels like no matter how I approach this, it's making things more complicated. Now, I'm stuck trying to figure out where things stand. I never wanted to be involved in her friends' conflicts, but at the same time, I didn't feel like I was being treated fairly. I don't know if I should just let it go and accept the situation or if I need to address it more seriously with my fiancé to make sure we are on the same page about boundaries and communication in our relationship. This whole experience has left me feeling confused and uncertain about where we stand, especially with the wedding approaching. I felt that was the only logical way to express myself. I was serious about her and made her meet my family and friends. She had no family members, her parents also passed away and cousins live in other countries or far away now, but her friends would be the ones who would be present at our wedding from her side. So I expected her to take me a little more seriously and maybe not ask her friends to block me, at least on Instagram. She often visits this female friend's house and sometimes they have sleepovers and sometimes even parties with this friend and her husband in their house, birthday parties or some other reason. I've never really had the opportunity to meet any of my fiancé's friends in a proper planned way. Whenever we've been together in a group setting, her friends typically bring their husbands and children along, which is completely understandable. In fact, I expressed to my fiancé a couple of times that maybe I could accompany her when they meet, just so I could also get to know them and be included in these gatherings. But she has been very strict about this, insisting that it's not something she wants, and she hasn't been willing to make an exception. This has left me feeling somewhat excluded and frustrated because I don't want to be left out of her life, especially as we prepare for marriage. What's bothered me the most recently, though, is the incident where she blocked me on Instagram twice, after I reached out to her friend. That situation has really stayed with me, and I can't seem to shake the feeling that there's more going on here than just a misunderstanding. Her reaction to me reaching out was so harsh, and I can't help but wonder why she's been so adamant about maintaining such strict boundaries. She's explained to me that her ex-boyfriends had previously caused issues with her friends, and that's why she's cautious about introducing me to them. She says she doesn't want any complications or misunderstandings to arise, which I understand to some extent. However, her reasoning seems to fall short now, especially considering where we are in our relationship. We're getting married in just 6 months, and the fact that she's still hesitant to let me meet her friends in a more formal sense doesn't make sense to me anymore. I've been a part of her life for over 2 years now, and we've decided to take this big step of getting married. At this point, I feel like we should be more integrated into each other's lives. This includes meeting friends, supporting each other's social circles, and preparing for the wedding together. It's also becoming more practical that I need to meet her friends, especially as the wedding preparations are ramping up. She has expressed that her friends will play a major role in helping her with the arrangements and duties on her side of the wedding, as she doesn't have anyone else to lean on. Given that, I feel like I should be able to communicate with them as we work on the upcoming wedding plans. We need to coordinate things, discuss logistics, and plan the event as a team, but it's been difficult to even make that happen since I haven't been introduced to them properly. I feel left out of an important part of the process, and I'm worried it might create unnecessary tension down the line if I'm not able to contribute to those preparations. I understand that she's been hurt in the past by previous relationships, and I respect her desire to protect her friendships, but at this point, it feels like we should have moved beyond this kind of hesitation. We are about to start a new chapter in our lives, and I need to be able to fully be a part of hers. Her continued resistance to introducing me to her closest friends feels like a barrier that is standing in the way of us moving forward as a couple. I don't want to pressure her, but I also don't want to feel like I'm being kept at a distance. We're about to make such a significant commitment to each other, and it's hard for me to understand why she's still holding back. I'm just trying to make sure we have a strong foundation for our future together, and I believe that part of that is being fully integrated into each other's lives, including our friends and families. I haven't spoken to my GF since last 2 days because of this, and she also is saying she is unsure of the marriage now after I expressed this desire to meet her friends, and she says that I will be controlling in nature in the future. I feel she will text me or call me back soon. Am I asking for the right thing by asking her to introduce me to her friends? What should I do? A few days ago, I-28M posted about an incident involving my girlfriend, 32F, and how she had asked one of her best friends to block me on Instagram. The blocking situation was something that really threw me off, and even though it wasn't too long ago, I was still processing the whole ordeal. Just when I thought things couldn't get any more complicated, I learned something today that left me completely surprised. My girlfriend's mother, whom she has always referred to as being dead, is actually still alive. To give some context, a few weeks ago one of her best friends who is married and has a child, reached out to me through Instagram. She couldn't get in touch with my girlfriend and she wanted to know where she was. Naturally, I tried to help by telling her I wasn't sure of my girlfriend's whereabouts, but it turned into a huge issue. My girlfriend found out about the message and immediately demanded that I block her best friend. I refused to block her, feeling like it was unnecessary, but my girlfriend then made it clear that her friend would be blocking me instead. After that, the whole situation unfolded, and I found myself increasingly confused and unsettled. I ended up posting about it, trying to make sense of the situation as I felt like there were so many things left unexplained. Since that incident, I found it hard to trust her fully. She's always told me that she didn't have any family left. She claimed she was an only child and that both of her parents had passed away. It never really sat right with me, especially when she would tell me about going to her countryside home every few months to visit her aunt, the only living relative she had. She would stay there for 2 or 3 days at a time, and while it seemed normal on the surface, there were always things about it that felt off. The biggest thing that stood out to me was that every time she got a phone call, the contact name would show up as Dad Home, and a woman's voice would come through the other end. She always referred to this woman as her aunt. I found this odd, especially given everything she had told me about her family, but I never pressed her about it. After all this time, it turns out that my girlfriend's mother is still alive, which completely contradicts everything she has ever told me. I don't know what to think anymore. It feels like I've been lied to and it's unsettling. I've tried to be understanding and patient with her, given the complexities of her life, but now that I know this new information, I'm starting to question everything. Why would she lie about something like this? And if she could hide such a major detail about her life, what else is she keeping from me? The trust issues that have been building up because of the blocking incident now feel even more pronounced, and I don't know how to approach her with these new doubts. I'm not sure how to confront her about the things I've learned without making the situation worse. I feel like I've been kept in the dark about so much of her life, and it's hard for me to continue in this relationship without understanding why she's been so secretive. This situation has made me question not only the details of her past but also the foundation of our relationship. If she's capable of hiding such significant things, I don't know what that means for our future together. The lack of trust is starting to weigh heavily on me and I feel lost. I don't know what to do or how to approach this conversation, but I know I can't keep ignoring the growing doubts in my mind. I need clarity on who she really is and why she's kept so much from me, especially if we're about to take the step of getting married in the near future. My GF has already met my parents and we were supposed to get married in the coming February. My parents were hesitant about our marriage because they also didn't like this secrecy and the fact that my GF asked her best friend to block me. I just thought it to be generational differences and was trying to make my parents understand that maybe it's not that big a thing. But still my parents didn't like this relationship and one day last week, they just went near my GF's office and asked a colleague of hers if she knew about her parents. But that colleague didn't know a lot about her family. I know this was not a right thing to do by my parents, but probably they could look at the suspicious things from an outsider's perspective and they just wanted to keep me safe. I tried to make them understand later that it's wrong to take these things in the professional space. They agreed not to ask there again but also urged me to do proper research before taking a step towards marriage. So, I also tried to ponder upon my parents' POV and the whole situation from an outsider's perspective, and it was all making me grow impatient. My GF just wouldn't let me talk to any of her friends or relatives or follow them on social media. And the reason she used to give for not introducing to her family was that her family would never approve of her marriage, as intercaste/intercommunity marriages are still not quite accepted in some parts of India, but she always used to say how open-minded her parents were and that her whole upbringing was very modern etc., and used to cuss my family for being suspicious and backward etc., and she also used to say if her parents were alive today, they would have definitely come for the marriage. My parents liked my GF initially when they met her first time and were very happy about the marriage. My father even offered to sponsor the marriage expenses for her side as she wasn't doing great financially. But they got suspicious when she even made her best friend block me. So all these combined made me very suspicious, and I decided to visit her countryside village house today just to check. I went there acting I was looking for someone else, and when I knocked the door, her mother came out. I know it was her mother because my GF showed photos of her mother to me earlier. It was truly like encountering a ghost. She looked like a fit and fine woman with a smile on her face and just looking like my GF. My GF and I are not talking properly since the day my parents went to her office. She called my parents crazy and whatnot for doing such a thing and was angry and said people of my community are clever/cunning and crazy and do suspicious spying on people, but never accepted that she said such a big lie to our family. And while I admitted to her that it was wrong to ask at her office, but it's not right for her as well to talk like that about my family when she was acting all suspicious, asking friends and family to block me and faking her mother's death. I haven't spoken to my GF about this, and what should I make out of this really? This was a very huge lie and I don't see a valid reason for this either. Her father, as I confirmed from locals nearby, had actually passed away and her mother was living there with her aunt who was living in a different house just on the adjacent block. I just want to know if there could be any valid reason or judgment that can be applied to this scenario because I can't think of any. Her mother looked fit and fine to me. Roughly around 50 to 60 years of age. So it's been a month roughly I posted my question about the weird behavior of my fiancée and her lying about her mother being dead. Today I thought of posting a small update regarding the entire situation because a lot of you have been asking me for this. After discovering that her mother was still alive, I was completely shocked for several days. It felt like a blow to my perception of the relationship, and I was left to process the reality of what I had just learned. However, as the days passed and I began to regain some clarity, I slowly started to feel a bit better. Despite that, there was still a lingering sense of confusion, and I couldn't help but wonder if I had done something wrong to cause such secrecy. The more I thought about it, the more I felt conflicted because, over the course of our relationship, I had seen both the good and bad sides of her. In many ways, I had been deeply invested in her life and emotions, but now it seemed like so many things were hidden behind a veil of deception. It's been some time now since that revelation, and I've had the space to reflect on what I truly know about her. In many ways, she is an incredibly compassionate person. She has always been kind-hearted, especially towards animals, and I've witnessed firsthand the care and love she's shown to several street animals. She has a genuine desire to help and has adopted or supported numerous animals during the 3 years we were together. That side of her is one I deeply admire, and it has shown me how capable she is of nurturing and caring for those who are vulnerable or in need. Yet, alongside that compassion, there have also been moments when I've seen a different side of her, one that has been harsh and judgmental. Her feelings toward my community, my language, and even my parents have at times been critical and unkind. I've been on the receiving end of her sharp words and actions, and it has often left me feeling hurt and confused. While I understand that no one is perfect and relationships often require compromise and understanding, the things she said and done have been difficult for me to reconcile with the person I thought I knew. There have also been clear instances where she has behaved in ways that I feel are wrong. For example, her discouragement of me interacting with her friends was something that left me feeling isolated and unimportant. The request for her best friend to block me on Instagram was just one example of her controlling behavior, and it wasn't the first time I had felt like my place in her life was being minimized. And of course, the biggest lie of all, the fact that she claimed her mother had passed away when in reality her mother was still alive, was a shocking breach of trust. That, along with the other things I had learned, has made it difficult for me to trust her fully moving forward. Despite all of this, I can't deny that there were also moments of joy and connection between us. I have seen her at her most vulnerable, and in those times she has been open and honest about her feelings. I've shared laughter and intimate moments with her, and at times I felt a deep connection to her. But even with all the good, the bad moments and the sense of deception that has come to light have left a mark on our relationship. Looking back, I realize that the complexity of our relationship lies in the fact that she is not just one thing. She's a mix of light and dark, kindness and cruelty, openness and secrecy. While I miss her at times, I also find myself questioning whether I can continue to invest in a relationship that is so full of contradictions. It's hard to ignore the reality of the lies and the hurtful things she said, but I also don't want to forget the parts of her that showed genuine love and compassion. At this point, I'm left wondering what the future holds for us. I'm not sure if I can move past the betrayal and the feeling of being kept in the dark about so many aspects of her life. And yet, I also recognize that I am still drawn to her, still thinking about the moments of connection we shared. I don't know if I'll ever be able to fully trust her again, but I also don't know if I'm ready to let go of the relationship entirely. The uncertainty and emotional turmoil are weighing heavily on me, and I don't know where this will lead, but it's hard to ignore the confusion and hurt that have clouded my feelings toward her. Also, she lied to me another time in the past, which I consider the second biggest lie after the story about her mother's death. This happened one night when she arrived in my city a day earlier than planned from her village home. I found out because I had been calling her repeatedly. She said she wanted to surprise me, but we didn't end up meeting that day because she asked me not to come over, claiming she was tired and feeling unwell. Later that night, I called her multiple times but she didn't pick up. The next morning, I went to her flat and discovered she wasn't there. A few hours later, she called me from a friend's phone and explained that she had gone to her friend's house because her friend's boyfriend had come to stay, and the watchman wouldn't allow another guy in the flat. So, they pretended to be family relatives to cover it up. I forgave her for lying that time and chose to trust her again. In hindsight, it was another significant lie, the second biggest lie during our entire relationship, the fake mother's death still being the first. About 7 or 8 days ago, I noticed her repeatedly posting WhatsApp updates about how she was treated badly by me, how she was subjected to loneliness, and how I broke up with her. During that time, I attended a party with some guys and girls, and I saw her posting stories that directly defamed me, even though we had already broken up and I had every right to socialize with whomever I wanted. That day, I messaged her after seeing her status updates, partly because I was angry about what she had posted and partly because I wanted to know the real reason behind her lie about her mother's death. She responded with a lengthy message, but to summarize, she listed the following reasons. 1. She said she lied about her mother being dead because her mother never got her due respect in the past relationship. Her ex probably never let her stay at her mother's village house for more than 2 days. 2. Her ex-BF was roaming around in the city with other girls and probably even cheated on her while her mother was in the hospital. 3. She thought her mother would get proper respect if she lied about her mother being dead like her expired father, who was treated respectfully after his death according to her. None of the reasons she gave seemed serious enough for me to believe. I pointed out that about 90% of her reasons were related to her ex-boyfriend and asked her why she had to lie about her mother, especially since I had always been supportive regarding her family issues. I told her that her explanations didn't make any sense to me at all. She later told me I was wrong to say she has narcissistic personality disorder. I told that to her once earlier because she never feels sorry and does gaslighting to hide her own errors, etc., and I read online that this could be symptoms of NPD and asked her to get expert help on this. She said she had consulted a psychologist who diagnosed her with CPTSD, which can cause narcissistic traits at times. Even so, I don't see how that justifies creating such a complex story about her mother to deceive both me and my parents, even going as far as to give a specific date for her mother's death anniversary. She was also upset with my parents because they found the whole situation suspicious and started asking questions. Although I feel bad and believe she may be dealing with some behavioral disorders, I also suspect there is a deeper, more complex secret, whether it's hers or her family's, that has led to all these stories. In my last conversation with her, I made it clear that, regardless of what she says, we are not in a position to restore the marriage. I don't want to hurt her by doubting her, nor do I want to hurt myself. Trust is something that cannot be rebuilt after everything that's happened, so I asked her to just tell me the truth. However, nothing substantial came from her that I could consider. Let's read some comments. First comment is, sounds like it's time cut all ties with her. You're right about narcissistic personality disorder. I have childhood trauma, but I don't go around gaslighting my partner to manipulate them. Don't even bother getting the truth at this point. She will never tell you because even when your relationship ship was on the line she still spouted lies or half-truths. He replied to first comment is, this is what I was thinking all the while. Even when the relationship was on the line she still spouted several lies and serious lies or half-truths, that may be her nature or she might consider these things to be less serious, but I have already expressed discomfort to her several times and never seemed like she understood. Second comment is, wow, lying is a deal breaker for me. You don't have to try to fix her. He replied to second comment. Yeah, that's true, I do feel sympathy for her sometimes. All I ever wanted was to give her the best life that I could, but right now I am not in a position to move forward with this relationship anymore at all. I forgave her for lying once, but this time, this whole thought-out plan to fake your own mother's death is just too much to digest. No matter what, I just can never think of legally attaching myself with her ever in the future, even if she cries and begs in WhatsApp status updates or anywhere else. I have to save myself and my family first, to be able to help others, and I right now don't trust her at all, and I feel she can definitely harm me if she needs to. Thank you for listening the story to the end. If you enjoy our videos, so don't forget to like, share and subscribe. Have a good day, and if you haven't subscribed yet, please do it and hit the notification bell icon to stay updated with more shocking real-life stories happening around you.